Peace, peace. Good morning. This is Yasir, Instructor Yasir, checking in, back with self-defense tip, reality-based self-defense tip number 2. Right? We always want to stay rooted and grounded in reality over here at Knowledge of Survival. So reality-based self-defense tip number 2 is de-escalation. So I'm going to use my self-defense tips. Started off as Yasir's 9 self-defense commandments when I first put these together over 10 years ago now. 10 years ago I first put these together, and I was putting these out. I was giving these out to students when I was doing women's self-defense classes, or even when I was doing self-defense lunch and learns at corporations spread out throughout Chicago. And I was handing these out to students for free. College students, I was doing a self-defense class for college students at IIT over there by the White Sox Stadium. And I was handing out these tips. This was my free, download gift. I still give it out for free now, but since I developed them 10 years ago, they've been updated. My knowledge bases grew, and I updated, my self-defense tips. So these are, as I'm going through these are going to be, kind of your basics, you know what I mean? Situational awareness, de-escalation. These are things that you'll find everywhere. But, it has my insight, right? So it has my insight, and hopefully, you can gain something from it. So self-defense tip number 2 today is going to be dealing with de-escalation. So I'm going to read from, what I've written on it, which is not long, and then we'll just expand on it, all right? Let me go ahead and pull this up. So, when met with a vocally aggressive person, you don't want to respond aggressively. That's just going to escalate the situation, but you don't want to be passive either, right? You don't want them to think that they can just run over you. You don't want to be seen as a soft target. We talked about that in situational awareness. When met with someone who is yelling at you aggressively, when you respond in kind, all you do is help escalate the situation. This oftentimes leads to a physical altercation because no one wants to back down. Instead, respond calmly but firmly. Like, whoa, hold on, brother. What's the problem? How can I help? When you do this, assume a stance that will allow you to move into action quickly should the situation escalate further. Don't turn your back on the aggressor until you are absolutely sure the situation has been de-escalated. All right? So basically what we're saying is when we're dealing with de-escalation, we don't want to appear soft or appear weak or appear as we're going to be an easy victim, but we also don't want to escalate the situation, right? We don't want to, turn it into a situation that it doesn't have to be, right? Because as we talked about with situational awareness, the only fight you can be sure that you're going to win is the one that you're never in, right? So when you're in a situation where things are tense and, people are starting to get loud, or the posture is starting to change, and aggression is starting to creep in, and you feel things starting to go another way. You, as the person who is striving to be knowledgeable about self-defense and vigilant about protecting yourself and your family. Also, if you are a concealed carry holder, in the eyes of the law, you're held to a different standard, okay? Because you are carrying what's known as a force multiplier. If you're carrying a legally owned firearm, you are carrying what's known as a force multiplier. So in the eyes of the law, you're held to a higher standard. So you can't be the person who is willing to draw your firearm every time somebody bumps into you by accident, or calls you out of your name, or scuffs your Nike shoe, or, says something that you don't like. Okay, you can't be that person. If you are that person, you're gonna have some problems, and you shouldn't have a firearm on you. So we want to practice. We want to keep a level head. Every situation that you're in, you want to think about, is this worth me dying or going to jail over? And if it's not worth it, then it's not worth it, right? End it. Let it go, right? Just let it go. You and I both know, growing up, as kids, teenagers, young adults, what have you, many a fight has happened, and some people have actually died, all based off of ego. All based off of ego. Somebody doesn't like how somebody talked to them. Somebody doesn't like what somebody said. And it just escalates into a situation that was completely unnecessary. Right? So practice de-escalation. Trust your instincts. You don't want to appear weak. You don't want to appear soft. But you also don't want to escalate the situation further than where it has to be. Also, I said in that tip that you always want to be aware too. So just because you're attempting to de-escalate the situation, that doesn't mean that the other person is going to allow it. Sometimes you don't know what's going on with them. They could be mentally unstable, just in a bad place that day, and they're just trying to take things to a whole nother level. So as you're trying to de-escalate and then remove yourself from the situation, make sure that you're still aware of what's going on, and make sure that they're disengaging as well. So you don't want to just walk away and turn your back on them. You want to make sure that you can step away from them, hands up, hands up, in a stance that says, hey, I don't want any trouble, but your hands are also at the ready to strike or do whatever it is that you might need to do. Draw your fire, whatever, right? Do whatever it is you need to do in order to engage in the situation should it become something more. All right. So that's what we're going to wrap up with today. This is reality-based self-defense tip number 2, de-escalation. We'll be back for more. Peace. When in doubt, train.